Hey, welcome back to Global Environment. Last segment we were doing a critique of the neoclassical economic model, and we found that it has some problems in dealing with energy. Energy wasn't even included in the original neoclassical economic model, and resulting production function calculations had some difficulties. And by including energy using that ecological economic model, we definitely improved our performance. Now, another way that the neoclassical model fails is in terms of dealing with the environment. So if we look at the original model embedded in here, there's no environment anywhere. You can't see it. It's totally self-sufficient. With the newer model, the ecological economic model, we've included the environment. Now, how does the original model fail? Let's see. Let's think about this. We have a very polluted lake here in Syracuse called Onondaga Lake. Okay? Onondaga Lake is one of the most polluted lakes in America, although it's improving. Now, 150 years ago, Onondaga Lake used to have amusement parks and beaches and a thriving fishery, and salt was produced from it, and all that disappeared after a while, because chemicals were being dumped in, because there were factories also on the side that were using the lake as a dump. So just think about it. Did they have to pay the lake to throw dangerous chemicals in? They didn't. It was free service, basically. Now, how about the businesses and people that utilize the lake for recreation and fishing and those kinds of things? Were they impacted? Yeah, they were impacted. But that was not accounted for, okay? So that comes to being a very important thing that has a specific name. That's called an externality. It's something that is external to the marketplace. You didn't have to pay the lake to throw in chemicals, but people were impacted. So in this case, it was unaccounted for costs. Okay? Unaccounted for costs. Now, there are also unaccounted for benefits that can be externalities as well. Okay? Think about this. What if you had a wetland on your property? What does a wetland do for society? Well, look at this. So a wetland can filtrate water. So there's an ecological good and service. It can filtrate water. It's also important for flood remediation. They're also important for biogeochemical cycles. They're also important for biodiversity. They have numerous uses. Now, if you had one of these on your land and somebody came up to you and said, you know, I can get the permits done, we can plow this wetland over and set up some condos and you'd make $500,000, what would most people do? They'd say plow over the wetland. Why? Because they don't get any economic benefit from the wetlands. They might be providing their community with all these cool goods and services like water filtration, flood remediation, even water storage for droughts, but they're not getting anything for it. So again, these are benefits that are outside of the economy. They're not accounted for. They're externalities. Now, what can we do to internalize these externalities, get them back into the economy? What can we do? Let's think about some methods. Using these cases, for example, what could you do to a company that's polluting a lake? What could you do? You could, to economically internalize what they're doing. One thing you could do is you could fine them. You could fine them, and that might change their behavior. You could also tax them. You could tax them for the quantity of pollutants that they emit. Okay? So these are ways to internalize externalities. How about for the benefits that aren't accounted for? Like your wetland. You got a wetland, you're getting nothing for it. You could subsidize somebody. You could give them, for example, tax breaks. You could also give people credits that they could trade for polluting. This would go back to maybe the emissions, the costs. You could give them credits that say you can emit this much, these many pollutants, and they could trade them. If they weren't able to get to that level, they could buy more. If they could sell them and make some money. And this is becoming more and more popular. So again, these are methods here to internalize externalities. And this is a way of, of compensating for a neoclassical model, and why one reason that the ecological economic model is a lot stronger model. It includes these things more explicitly, okay? So in the next segment, we're going to start to talk about, okay, if we're going to do these fines, these taxes, these subsidies for ecological goods and services, environmental goods and services, how do we know how much they cost? How much they're worth? How do we determine that? That's what the next segment will be. So see you next time in Global Environment.